some candy, baby.
And when you go there, you gotta praise them. Yeah. Hey, put this in the tides. I'm finna keep this money.
I know that's right. Yep, I would be doing the same thing sometimes. No, I'm playing, y'all. I never did that. But what we're going to talk about today is growing up Christian, being raised Christian, and how, we shouldn't be doing that. We just should not be doing that. At least that's my personal opinion. But we're going to break this down today. We're going to talk about the culture, the things that go on inside of the church, why I think that's not a good environment for children. Also, we're going to talk about, the rules, expectations, some of the things that go on, the nonsense that goes on, the deeper problems, the theologies, the thought patterns and stuff like that affects developing minds. So, and then at the end, we're also going to talk about stepping away from Christianity and the problems and challenges that can bring. This is a very sensitive topic to me, a very, very important one to me, because my life has been pretty much defined by, the Christianity that I grew up in. But we're going to talk about that. I got personal stories and all that. So thank you for clicking. Thank you for watching. Make sure you drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And we're not going to waste any more time. Let's get right into this first video. We have a young gentleman here talking about his experience growing up. And then I'm going to talk about, we're going to elaborate a bit on that. And then talk about, the environment and really elaborate on why developing minds shouldn't be there.
Smooth, check him out. Look, this might offend some people, but trust me, that's not my intentions. I just think it's the truth, man. Smooth, look. I genuinely think, and look, this is not for everybody, but it goes for a lot of the people. And if you grew up in the church, you understand. I don't think kids should be in church until they like 13, 14. Like, if they got the little kids group and the little kids church and the little where they get to connect with other kids in the church, okay, that's good. But I'm talking about being actually in the church, sitting there. It shouldn't go to that until they like 13, 14. Like, bruh, and if you grew up in the church, being a kid in church is the absolute worst. Like, bro, there's nothing worse than that look. And I love, you feel me? I'm not saying nothing, but like at that age, like before 13, 14, you just sitting there dummy bored. Like, bro, like everybody watching you, everybody trying to make sure you good, you paying attention. But bro, realistically, bro, we don't know what's going on for real. And there's some people who actually found the Lord at a young age, and bro, God bless them, bro. But a lot of the kids, bro, I know y'all understand. You grew up in the church, bro. You going to church, especially at a black or Caribbean church, Hispanic church, some masses, like some of the white church, some white masses in church be long too. But bro, them extra long churches and you just sitting there dumb bored. Nah, bro, nothing's worse than that. Like, bro, and after my grandma used to think I was so like saved and healed and anointed. Nah, mama. I'm smiling after church because this shit is over with, bro. Like, no, bro. You know what I'm saying. Look, bro, look. Don't get bro. It's just an opinion, man. Smooth.
No, I think what he's saying is very profound. First, I want to touch on the fact that, like, he keeps saying, this is just my opinion. Don't take offense to this and stuff like that, because the Christians really keep a tight ship, which is respectable. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but even speaking out against, how we congregate, how Christians congregate, and some of the littler aspects, you're not even allowed to speak on that. Some of that can even be looked at as like you're being blasphemous or you're rebelling against God. So I think that's a very interesting thing. So this young man seems to still be, Christian. I don't know how strong his faith is, but he does seem to have some type of reverence for the Hebrew God. But yeah, what he said was very true. Probably like 13, 14, 12, maybe even. I could even consider maybe 10. We should then start pushing kids and saying, this is my religion. This is what I want to show you. The first 7 years is very pivotal for a child. The first 7 years really shows them like what life is. This is where you get most of your world views from, believe it or not. The first 7 years of life are the most important years of life. Really. They structure your whole life. So, as he was saying, before that, you really don't know what's going on. You're just kind of taking in the information during that time. You're just taking in this information and understanding and processing, getting a feel for the world. So you're not really comprehending. You're not really questioning things. You're just kind of taking it in and accepting things for the most part. So I think that is a very dangerous environment for a developing sponge-like mind, because we're just throwing these ideas at children that most of them are a matter of opinion. We have this theology from however many thousand years ago, and now we're throwing it on this child as if, it is facts, it's true, when a lot of it has been disproven. So I think it is a little, just a little oppressive almost to throw such a developing mind into a high curriculum environment like that. There is so much stuff that's going on that you really don't even comprehend, but at the same time, you're being told, accept it. You have to accept it. It is not optional. This is something you have to accept, and this is something you're telling a 3-year-old. I can make a really good example here because, Christians are against their children being taught evolution sometimes. Like, they have a strong position against that. They don't want their kids learning evolution. So what if we, for whatever reason, every Sunday, we had to gather up every family and throw them into this science building and say, this is the truth, you have to accept it. And we did that to developing minds. A lot of people wouldn't think that's right. Like, even though I believe in evolution, I don't believe that's the whole truth. I don't think that's the full picture. So to sit them down and say, this is everything that you need to know is damaging, because at those pivotal ages, up until 7, you will accept it. You will form your life around this, and then the rest of your life will be unlearning this, and you'll have like a cognitive dissonance almost. At 13, 14, yeah, you understand the world and what's going on around you a little bit more, and you can start debating. You can start rationalizing for yourself and start thinking about, these bigger thoughts, these bigger ideas, like God, like being saved, deliverance, stuff like that, the soul. But having young minds, especially when they're just sitting there bored and have nothing to do, it's kind of just damaging. It just kind of pisses the kids off. It doesn't really foster this love. At least for me, it didn't. I remember just sitting there and being like, this isn't a way for a child to develop. I shouldn't be sitting here for 2 hours. Like, I could be doing so much more with my time. And that's how I felt at the time. We're gonna talk a little bit more into this because I really want to get deep into this. So we're gonna listen to what another Christian woman has to say about this. So we listened to what a Christian man has to say about, his discrepancy with, having developing minds in the church. So we're also going to listen now to a young woman who still seems pretty strong in her faith. We're gonna listen to what she thinks about how she grew up, even though she's still in it.
I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter as a kid growing up in a Christian household. It wasn't just Harry Potter. Anything that had magical or esoteric undertones, I wasn't really allowed to take part in. So that also included Pokemon and Beyblades for my little brother for some reason. Also, for a really long time growing up, I wasn't allowed to show my shoulders or like wear a tank top without having a cardigan or a jacket or something else over it. My mom later did admit that that was more of a personal thing with her and less like Christian, but I'm just throwing it in there. I also was not allowed to listen to any secular music whatsoever. Things like Disney Channel got the occasional pass, but overwhelmingly Christian radio, gospel music, church music was the only thing that we were allowed to listen to. Shout out ZD8.3 for those in the Central Florida area. That was the Christian radio station that was always on in the car. I also was never allowed to sleep over at friends' houses, like randomly. You know how sometimes at school people are like, oh, like, do you want to sleep at my house? Do you want to come over this weekend? I was not allowed to do that unless my mom had an established relationship with the other parent. And if anyone was sleeping over at my house, which they didn't do too often, on a Saturday night, they were expected to attend church with us Sunday morning. I obviously wasn't allowed to curse, but this also extended to like text acronyms. So I vividly remember at one point getting reprimanded for using LMAO because of what it stood for, and I could only say LMBO. I feel like only some of these are unhinged and the rest are kind of normal, I think. If you were raised Christian, let me know if your parents had similar rules to this, or does this sound crazy?
Now, a few of the rules she laid out were very good. I agree with some Christian principles, like no cursing, That's great. Like, no, we should be trying to clean up our vocabulary and be nice and respectful and considerate of others, especially cursing as a developing mind. If you're a developing mind still trying to, you're using profanity, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't. I don't know why. Like, maybe that's just the thing about me. There's nothing objectively wrong about it, but it just doesn't reflect well for your family. It just doesn't look good for your family, which is something subjective and is not that important, but at the same time, I don't like hearing it. I think it's a good principle. Also, she said, she wasn't allowed to sleep over people's houses, which is more of a personal thing for sure. And that's something I can agree with, especially because you want to make sure that you're raising your child in a cohesive pattern. You want to make sure that you're not sending your child off to a disruptive environment that disrupts whatever beneficial behaviors you have developed. But at the same time, it does create this restriction and isolation from, the rest of your peers. Because as she was saying, like, she couldn't watch Harry Potter. She couldn't watch Pokemon, Beyblades. They have this strict aversion to spiritualistic things, yet they are highly mystical in their theology. Their theology is rooted in mysticism. But you're telling these children, no, that's not good. You can't listen to that. You can't have this around. This isn't cool. Your friends that are doing that, they're evil. Your friends are evil and they're trying to make you evil. This is the devil. So now you're telling, a 4-year-old this. You're telling a 5-year-old this, maybe even a 10-year-old. And now they're like developing some type of real fear. That's why I say it's not a good environment for developing minds. Minds that are just a little bit more developed, that can actually comprehend, that can actually debate because they have been paying attention to the world around them up until then. They should be then able to take an outside experience from Christianity and compare it to Christianity and say, you know what? I was outside of Christianity for a while and I didn't have any negative effects. There wasn't anything really wrong with this. But when I come into Christianity, now all of a sudden I'm getting shamed for this. Now all of a sudden it's a bad thing. I think you can make that distinction at 13, 14 a little bit better. Just a little bit better, because I remember even me growing up. And I wasn't allowed to watch certain things like Naruto. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. If we're not afraid of demons, then why are we scared to watch what is going on here? If I'm protected, which you guys keep telling me, why am I scared of any of these things here on Earth then? But that was like the cognitive dissonance for me, but I was still taught to be afraid of these things, to fear these things. But after a certain point, I'm just thinking for myself, and it's like, no, there's no real harm in this stuff. There is no real harm, except for expanding your mind and learning other things. And that's where Christianity really, that's where this control really comes from. They don't want you to think about things outside of the religion that can get you thinking about the real, they don't want you going outside of the religion so that you don't end up learning about the real nature of this world. The more you learn, the more you can piece together what is true and what's not. But if you're stuck in, one echo chamber from the time you were born, if you're stuck in one philosophy and never think outside of it, you're stuck in one way of being, one thought pattern, and never think outside of it, then you will never understand. You'll just keep listening to these people. You'll keep doing whatever these people keep telling you to do, because God doesn't talk to humans. No, God doesn't talk to humans. He has a book that humans keep rewriting, but he doesn't talk to humans. So you have to keep listening to what these other humans are telling you God is saying. And in order to do that, you can't think outside of the box. Otherwise, they're going to leave you behind. It's a very interesting thing. But now we're going to hear some more perspectives from outside of Christianity. She's going to elaborate a little bit more on these destructive thought behaviors and patterns, the more concerning ones for sure.
You want to know something? Growing up Christian, I feel like deep in my mind, I always knew this shit wasn't real, but I had this fear of like hell, and then I had this fear of God as well. Like during my earliest years in Christianity and Catholicism or whatever, like I was just plagued with fear as a child. Like through and through. Scared of my parents, I'm scared of God, I'm scared to go to hell, I'm scared of the fucking devil, I'm scared of demons, I'm fucking scared. They were also superstitious, but they condemned witchcraft, so like I'm scared of that side of shit too, because it's like they condemn it but talk about it the most. I've had moments of brief deconstruction when it comes to religion and when I was younger, because it just didn't make sense. And the biggest part of why I always had a feeling I would just not be Christian after I had a choice. I always said I probably will never go back to church after I move out, and I still haven't. I've read the Bible front to back multiple times, had to study the Bible since I was young, and the Bible has a lot of gems. But one thing I could never stand by, I never liked praying to know him, he. I hated that. I don't know what it was. Like, why am I praying to a man? I always felt like that. And then I'm reading the Bible as a child. Before I even had a period, they was calling periods unclean, and they just portrayed women as like either harlots, temptresses, disgusting creatures, or just like below. I realized that women were below men in the church, and I just couldn't agree with that. Religion doesn't align with my personality. I'm too much of a woman that leads her own way to ever give credit to a male deity at that. There's so many layers to how the most evil people that raised me use religion as a way to excuse their behavior, which is why I will forever be disgusted in them for that. But then again, you see it as a whole. It's like a collective hive mind when it comes to Christians. Like they're above and everybody else is below. I'm sorry, and I'm gonna just say, I never agree with giving God credit for shit that I did. Like, you feel what I'm saying? Since I was little, it was like, God didn't do that. I did that. God didn't do that. The doctor did that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Whenever they would just praise God for certain shit, it's like everything is always outside of yourself. I found rooting in myself very early in life, and that was uprooted by religion. So I don't see myself ever going back.
No, it's great. That was a great video. The first thing she touched on was the fear aspect. She's afraid of, the media around her. She's afraid of, her peers and stuff like that because they're deemed evil. She's afraid of God, her parents, all of this. She's just afraid. And that's what Christianity does. It instills a fear in you. Just a fear of everything. Because if you don't listen to God, he's going to destroy you. If you don't listen to your parents are going to get furious. Like, I got a clip coming up of a young man getting scolded by his mother. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking what, you had to go through, developing minds have to go through just trying to exist. But yeah, you develop this fear of just the world around you, things that you can see and things that you can't see, things that don't exist. You're afraid of things that don't even exist. And this is how you come into this world. Fear. Full of fear. And it's not by accident. This is how the Christians have always operated. If you don't listen to the Christians, you go back, hundreds of years, you go back to the 1600s, the 1500s, 1400s, whatever. Ever since the Romans got their hands on Christianity, if you don't do what the Christians say, that's it for you. So it is by design that you are supposed to fear the Christians. You are supposed to fear the God because that God doesn't play around. That God deletes things. He deletes people. Very temperamental God, and that's what you'll read. You'll open your Bible and you'll see, oh, God don't play. God gets rid of everybody. He don't play. So it is very much by design that you're supposed to be in fear the whole time that you're in this religion. And that's how they control you. That's how they keep getting you to come back, because they have the light. They're the ones that can show you the way, and God will forgive you. But repent and do what we say. Do what we think you should do. What is holy and what is upright. But the same people telling you what to do, like she said, these same people that tell you, don't do this, don't do that, you look at them and they do the worst stuff imaginable. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and these people claim to be the holiest people on earth. They claim to be the only people that are actually doing God's word. They call their religion the truth. And in fact, it is almost synonymous to them. They don't even call it, Jehovah's Witnesses. They say, I'm in the truth. That's how deeply ingrained into some Christian cults it gets. It gets that brainwashy. So these people believe, they're holier than thou. But just recently, they had a lot of court cases open. A lot of, PDF court cases open. So it's like, how is this a recurring theme within Christianity? It's not just this one Christian sect that does it. It's a lot of Christian sects that somehow, for whatever reason, find themselves dealing in things that they have no business dealing in. None at all. And that's just on an organizational scale. If you want to look down on an individual scale and talk from my anecdotal experiences, you know, the people, the family that I grew up with, watching them and how they maneuver through their life, it's like, are you sure you're Christian? You claim that the only way to get salvation is to be nice to each other and good-hearted and, you know, truthful and upfront, but you do fraudulent activities. You commit fraud, and you know you commit fraud. A lot of them do. So it's a very interesting thought pattern to see, you know? If you just want to talk from anecdotal experiences. I don't know everybody's experiences, but it is a very well-known trope that Christians are just hypocrites. It's a pretty talked about trope. It's a what's it called? Stereotype. It's a stereotype that, you know, Christians, hypocrites, you know, that's what they go hand in hand. But that's a very interesting thing. Like, why is it that this religion that is supposed to be about salvation and love instills so much fear, and it has some of the worst things going on? Christians have deleted so many cultures. Christians have deleted so many other Christians. Like, the infighting between these groups is insane. How are you guys claiming to be the one true, united under one, but you guys can't even get the theology together? It's so many sects, and it breaks off. It is like, there's other religions out here that are more unified than you guys. You guys are the most divergent, the most divergent? Yeah, I think that is the word. But they break off. They break off too much. They protest too much. I just think it's very interesting. And the last thing that she pointed out was that, you know, God is portrayed as a man. And this man is doing pretty much everything in your life. You know, you gotta say that God did that for you. But if you are the embodiment of everything, if you're supposed to be everything, the complete one, then how are you man? Wouldn't you be both at the very least? That doesn't make sense. So you start picking at, you know, Christian theology, what they say is true and what's happening and what's going on. You start picking at it a little bit more, you're like, nah, you guys don't know what you're talking about at all, actually. Because how can God be a man? That's part of the earthly existence. For all we know, man and woman don't exist anywhere outside of this planet. We have not seen it anywhere else except for out on this planet. We don't know if that exists anywhere else. Yet for sure, we know for certainty that God is a him. Even though God is elusive, God is a mystery. You can't know the true understanding of God. If you start talking about God as if you know him, some priest and pastor with a white hat on is gonna come and tell you you don't know anything about God. Let me tell you. It's all confusing. It's all confusing. It don't make sense if you actually sit down and think about it. But that's what this other woman discovered. She just discovered after a while it just don't make sense. And let's just talk about that. Let's just elaborate a little bit more on that.
I feel like no one prepares you for the pain and the heartbreak you go through when you're deconstructing. Let's talk about it. I'm deconstructing from religion. I grew up in a cult. I was born and raised in a cult. We left when I was 14. Our church was like the only church that gets saved. I really went from like one religious experience to another. And I'm 27 and have like started this deconstruction process within the last couple of months. And it is such a painful journey to stop and realize that everything I've believed for my entire life has been because someone has told me to believe it. Like, I saw someone on TikTok say, like, imagine like being told your entire life that 1 + 1 = 3. And then you one day wake up and realize, no, 1 + 1 = 2, but you've been told your entire life that 1 + 1 = 3. I've never related more to that analogy because that's literally me. I feel like for the first time, I'm starting to question things I believe, things I've been told, and recognizing that I have blindly believed so many things just because someone told me. And that is a very, very scary, lonely, isolating, and painful process and journey. So, anyone else in this boat with me?
Yeah, what she said is very true. That's exactly, you know, the realization I came to with religion. You know, you're just listening to what other people are saying pretty much. You know, sure, if you believe the Bible was written by Moses, then fine. You're just listening to what Moses said though, because that's who started Genesis. You know, he wrote the first 10 pages of the Bible. He wrote the Mosaic Law and all that stuff. He was the one who led everybody out of Egypt. But that didn't happen. It never happened. You know, you sit down with real historians, you sit down and talk to real Egyptologists or whatever, and they'll tell you the Exodus story is a myth. It didn't actually happen. The Red Sea never parted. So what she says about, 1 + 1 = 3 is very true. Another example is, they believe the earth was created in 6,000 years. The earth is only 6,000 years old. It was created 6,000 years ago. Because God created the earth in 6 days. On the 7th day he rested and everything was complete. That's what they say, and it's a day for a year. It's a day for 1,000, I think. A day for 1,000 years. I think 1,000 years is like a day to God. I forgot what scripture it is. I will try to put it up if I can, but I believe the scripture says 1,000 years is like a day to God. So they use that math and say, oh, the earth is about 6,000 years old. If you believe in creation, the creation theory, the Hebrew creation theory, then you only believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. When it's already been confirmed the earth is like 5 billion or 3 billion years old, like it's billions of years old. I forgot exactly how many, but it's billions of years old. So this whole creation story doesn't add up with it. There's a lot of things that just don't add up. If you really look into the Christian theology, you start thinking about their science and how it applies to real cosmology. You start thinking about, the events in there. Some of them really didn't happen. Some of them are just myths. Like most religion, they have their myths. It's just something I could never understand, Once you get outside of it and you start seeing, I was just believing what other people were believing, it kind of leaves you destroyed. It leaves you thinking, oh no, what else am I believing just because other people told me I should believe that? It's very scary. It's a very scary feeling and that you're seeing how so many people still believe it, and so many people are just listening to the stories that get told down over time. The telephone game. Here, this is what I heard. Here, this is what I heard. That's what I heard, and we're writing it down, and people are changing it over the centuries, destroying Bibles, burning Bibles, deleting cultures, all because we had to control the narrative of the Bible. That's what happened over time. And you sit here and you're trying to make sense and try to fit it into your world. You're trying to make it make sense for your life. But this is something that's been changed over thousands of years. We're not even in the same mindset of those people. The people who needed the Bible back then were still developing societies. They were still learning to come together. They were still learning about community and stuff like that. So yeah, they had to start laying down rules. This is a big time for rules and morality and philosophy, because if we're going to survive as a people together in mass groups, then we have to collectively act together. We have to have some type of moral basis, which is what I can understand that Christianity is that's what it's trying to do. But the way it goes about it today is highly problematic. We're controlling people down to, the TV shows they can watch. Down to the thoughts you can have. You can't think too hard. No, you can't have those thoughts. Those thoughts are the devil's thoughts. Don't think that. Seriously? I don't know how you get to this point as a human. I don't know how as a human you can sit and have somebody say that shit to you and you just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna think. Because that's what you're pretty much agreeing to. When somebody tells you those thoughts are the devil's thoughts, they're telling you not to think that. And you're like, okay, yes, I will not think anymore. It blows me. It actually, if I think about it too hard, I'm going to get pissed off, actually. I'll make myself so mad if I sit here and think about this too hard. But we're gonna listen to one last woman talk about her experience leaving.
No, you're made to believe that if you leave this faith that you're brought up in, there is no real peace, there's no protection. When I was heavily religious, I was depressed for 10 years, fasting and praying and asking God for answers, and the preachers and the Christians around me. And I never understood why I wasn't happy until I finally left. Crazy. No fulfillment. One thing I used to believe growing up Christian was, if I ever stepped away from Christianity, or anyone who stepped away from it, their life would completely fall apart and they would suffer. I did think I would become lost, which I did do for a while. Unhappy, spiritually attacked and empty. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Ever since stepping away, it's been the complete opposite. For the first time, I'm living life in my own terms. Because of that, I feel so much more happier. I truly believe that when you move through life with more peace, more clarity, more happiness, you naturally begin to attract better life experiences, better opportunities, and better people to be around. You know, I feel like even having people that you can speak to that don't constantly bring religion, amazing. And the relationship with yourself changes. I'm pouring so much energy into this God, into this thing, and I'm finally pouring all that energy into myself. I did think leaving Christianity would destroy me. It's made me realize that actually I can now live my life.
Yep, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. This whole religion is created to control people. I can definitely get into that in a different video because that's a different rabbit hole. I even found some videos on that I had to exclude from this video, but exactly what she's saying. They want you to believe that if you ever leave, your whole life is going to be destroyed. And depending on, you know, the sect that you come from, which Christian denomination you follow, that may be kind of true for a while because your whole social life depends on that. And humans, being a social creature, they put heavy emphasis on their social status. They put heavy emphasis on where they fit in socially. You know, there was a study done that showed, I gotta put it up, I gotta find it, I can't just say there was a study done, but social isolation feels very much like death to humans. So they compare it to death. The emotional response, the nervous response, the nervous system responds to threats of social isolation just like a life-threatening situation. Because it is. And humans, you know, especially prehistoric humans, we're talking about humans, you know, cavemen. If you didn't have a social circle, you didn't survive. You didn't have other people around you, you probably didn't survive that long. Because humans cannot attain the resources, all the resources that they need on their own. Well, really, no organism can. The more an organism becomes collective, the more an organism works with the environment around it, the individuals around it, the more successful it is. That's just how it is. You have more resources available to you. But especially for humans, we are just wired to understand this. We're conscious of this too. It's subconscious and conscious. So I definitely understand, you know, losing your social circle, because I did. I lost my social circle when I stepped away from the Jehovah's Witnesses at 17. But that was something I was fully prepared for, you know, because even at the age of 15, I was pretty much convinced that God was not real. I already had enough scientific evidence to back it up, historical facts, to back up the fact that this God, this Hebrew God, this one God from one location in a world that is so war-torn, why would I ever believe in it, was fake. You could definitely find community though. There's, you know, Reddit threads, and I'm not saying, you know, that's all you need. You go online, guys, and that's all you need. No, but you can definitely have those conversations with somebody if you really need to. If you really need to vent and get it out, there's Reddit. You can get your feelings out and talk to some people. And you can even get into some Eventbrite. There's like events on Eventbrite where you can get with people who have the same beliefs as you. You can get into other forms of spirituality. You can start learning about different things. Start talking to different people and finding out their reasons for believing in their religion and stuff like that. That's the way I got through it, at least. I didn't just say, you know, oh man, I lost everything. Guess I'ma die now. Like I didn't throw away my life. It's not like I was completely devastated. It was not like I completely gave up, but at the same time, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at the same time. I definitely felt lost during that time, 2018 to about 2020-ish. I felt a little bit lost because I was like, man, everything I believed in was really fake. And then I started getting into astrology and understanding, you know, patterns more. Just the understanding the underlying consciousness of every single cell, of every single part of this universe, how we're all connected. Versus God is separate from me and I have to fear him. Understanding that I am one with everything and there is nothing to fear. Shifting from that mindset, but I mean, it is a journey. Like she said, it's a journey and it's going to be a difficult journey once you step away from Christianity, but it's either you can continue to sit in fear, because that's really all it is. You can continue to sit in the fear of leaving, or you can actually leave and then you can actually live life. You can actually see what life is like. You can actually experience what life is like. because it's totally different from what the Christians say. Not everything is evil, not everything is bad, you know? So if you're feeling lost in that feeling and you're a young adult looking and you're like, man, I don't know, because even some people, I believe one of them said I was 27 when I started to deconstruct. And it's like, dang, I'm only 26. I knew this when I was 16, 15. At that time, I had to pretend and stay in it because my social circle depended on it, and I was still living with my family, so I couldn't do anything I wanted at that point. But once I was able to go off to college and start living my own life, that's exactly what I did. I got out of it as soon as I could. It was just a little bit easier for me because of how I'm built. I'm just a little bit more intellectual. It's not to flex, but I really do like to sit and read scholarly papers. I really take great interest in philosophy, and I take great interest in religion. I understand the Reformation. I understand the Crusades. You know, I understand a lot about this topic. So at a young age, I understood a lot about this topic. So definitely, if you're feeling stuck in Christianity, or if you recently left Christianity, you're not alone. You are definitely not alone. But start to educate yourself. Start to find different ways of coping. You don't always have to look and seek out other people's advice. You don't always have to see what other people are doing and be accepted by it. You could go read a book, even though somebody wrote that book. Yes, I understand the irony of what I'm saying. But you can go out and collect your own knowledge. You don't have to read only the books that people tell you can read. Go read other books. And then go sit down and practice something. It is one thing to have a religion and have the knowledge and everything, but it's a different thing to have practiced something and have an experience in something. And then you can mold your worldview around your own experiences, and it becomes that more powerful when you can back your own experiences up with scientific research, when you can back your own experiences up with philosophical ideas. Why do you behave like that? Well, because when I behave like this, I get this result, I see this elevate in my life, and it's backed by this philosophy that I have. That's why I do. Oh, why do you believe in this? Why do you think that this is the way that the nature of the universe is? Because if you look at quantum physics and what's going on down there, you can see that the reality is not exactly how it is appearing to be. It's very interesting. So you get out there and you start learning, and you don't just accept one thing. You can definitely expand your mind, and that's the thing that Christians are just afraid of. People expanding their mind. It is about control, it is about fear. But I could definitely expand on that on a different episode because this one's getting a little bit long. If you listened all the way through, thank you so much. I'm gonna have more content like this. I'm gonna still do the pop the balloons. I just had to get to making them because I like to make lighthearted content too. Like, I like doing this heavy content. I need to get this message out here. I want to put out what I've learned in this experience. So this is definitely important to me, but I also like to be fun and lighthearted. So make sure you look out for that content too. This is the Big Crash Theory. Thank you for rocking with me. Stay warm, stay safe, whatever's going on with you. Until next time, guys.
Now that part is true. I don't trust you. You just sat up here and lied and made some bullshit up because you want to believe whatever you want to believe. If you don't believe in God, that's on you. I'm going to keep doing what God told me to do and raising my kids up in his upbringing. If you don't believe in God, that is on you.
So let it be on me.
It is going to be on you, but you're not about to sit in my motherfucking house while I'm at church praising God. You ain't grown. No, sir. You going to get your ass up and you won't go to church and listen to it even if you don't want to fucking hear it. I don't give a fuck. That's what it is. So you going to respect my wishes in my household. When you turn 18, you do whatever the fuck you want to do. Do you understand? All right. So now that we on the same page, all that bullshit you talking, keep that